Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Houses of Deception, Madeline Dawkins, Book 6 by Cynthia Hamilton, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. Hold still, Madeline admonished her fidgeting husband. You smell good. And you are not making this any easier, she groused as Mike tried to nibble her ear. Neither are you, he countered, completely ignoring her efforts to get his tie straight and centered. Who wears a tie to a party these days anyway? People who attend lavish formal parties? And why do these people want me tagging along? Don't ask me, but they insisted on both of us being there, and you're going to look the part. Seeing that the tie wasn't going to line up right, Madeline gave up and started over. I don't see why we can't show up to this thing a little late, especially since I know you don't want to go any more than I do. Besides, who's going to miss us with all those other people there? The clients, for starters, and Lauren, most definitely. This is the first big event she's planned all on her own, and it's very important these clients believe this extravaganza was conceived and executed by me, not just fobbed off onto an assistant. It all goes down to status and perception with people like them. It's always got to be top drawer all the way. The best of the best. No exceptions. Having gotten the silk tie as straight as it was going to get, Madeline peeled Mike's hands off her hips, trying to keep the evening and her commitment on track. Regardless, they've spent a bundle on this soiree, and everything has to be perfect. I'm sure you'll find plenty to occupy your time while I just make sure it all comes off without a hitch. After the entrees are served, we'll slip out quietly. Who are these people again? Tara and Troy Richardson. They're a husband and wife real estate team. Youngish, very image-conscious, hell-bent on succeeding in crowded but very lucrative field. They are definitely out to impress somebody or a lot of somebodies. Tonight's event has cost them over $30,000, and it's just a 5th anniversary party. Mike's jaw dropped at the extravagance and folly of such showmanship. Hey, current affairs just arranges these parties. We don't make judgments about the character of our clients. The Richardsons' money is as good as anyone else's. Besides, with all the hard work Lauren has put into this soiree, it's bound to be dazzling. Mike continued to grumble, but Madeline chose to ignore him as she checked the contents of her evening bag. She saw no point in reminding him how disinterested she was in the event-planning side of her enterprises, but that it continued to generate more revenue than they brought in from their sleuthing efforts. She examined her appearance in the full-length mirror, touching up her lipstick before smoothing down the ankle-grazing lace gown that hugged her curves like a race car on mountain switchbacks. If you don't hurry up and get in the car, you won't be going anywhere looking that hot, and that dress will be the first thing to go. Madeline caught Mike's look in the mirror, sensing he was past threatening and well on his way to pouncing on her. She grabbed a gossamer pashmina, the same shade of lavender as her dress, giving her handsome husband an amused smile as she slipped past him and out their bedroom door before he could make good on his threat. The semicircular motor car was backed up almost to the street when Mike guided his '64 Mercedes 220 SE through the entry gates of the Richardson residence. He had peppered Madeline with questions, more out of idle curiosity than real interest. He was making an effort to at least appear supportive and engaged. Knowing the couple throwing this party were in their mid-30s, he was a little surprised they lived in a section of Montecito where even modest, outdated homes on an acre of land started around $3 million. This home looked like it had received a full overhaul in the last few years, increasing its worth substantially. It made him wonder if the couple came for money, or if they had managed to get a good foothold in a high-stakes, cutthroat industry at a relatively young age. The team of valets made sure the partygoers were helped out of their cars and on their way to the festivities with friendly efficiency, which Madeline took as the first good sign. Lauren had made sure every service provider had their marching orders. Madeline found her assistant hovering just past the entry hall, making sure everything was going as planned. Lauren's vantage point afforded her a view of the living room, dining room, kitchen, patio, and most of the large backyard where 2 well-stocked bars flanked a chocolate fountain, a kitschy attraction that had been a must-have for their clients. Servers with trays of champagne flutes and delectable hors d'oeuvres weaved through the gathering. Lauren flashed Madeline a nervous smile when she became aware of her boss's arrival, right before a young guy in a white chef's tunic enlisted her help. Lauren followed him back to the kitchen, earning Madeline's gratitude for stepping into her duties so efficiently. There were only about 30 guests in attendance so far. but there was a decent buzz of conversation which had to compete with a Brazilian jazz combo set up on the lawn. A bar was set up on the left side of the patio, where 10 large round tables stood ready to accommodate the guests. So far, the evening had managed to achieve the right atmosphere. Guests were chatting, drinking, and sampling hors d'oeuvres, while more invitees continued to stream in. Not surprisingly, Madeline was familiar with many of the guests, thanks to all the events current affairs had planned over the years, in addition to the 12 years she had spent mingling with Santa Barbara's movers, shakers, and social climbers, while she was married to Stephen Ridley, a ruthless power seeker who was currently on the run. Madeline limited herself to quick greetings as the guests continued to trickle in. She and Mike remained out of the general flow of traffic, up against the wall where she could keep tabs on the staff as they carried out their duties. She had to at least give the appearance she was running the show so her clients didn't feel they'd been fobbed off to an underling. "Oh, there you are," Tara Richardson sang out as she came in from the patio. Madeline had observed the lady of the house as she interacted with her guests, fulfilling her role as gracious hostess, thanks to a little liquid confidence. Adding proof to Madeline's suspicion, Tara traded her empty champagne glass for a full one as a server passed by. The servers backstepped to offer the tray to Madeline and Mike. Both declined. Though she was petite, Tara Richardson exhibited a robust self-esteem that at times came across as domineering or even predatory. Mike's reaction to the way she sized him up had Madeline biting her lip to keep from laughing. The look Tara fixed on him was as suggestive as it was challenging, the unspoken message being, "Where have you been hiding, gorgeous?" Nipping the awkwardness in the bud, Madeline made the introductions. "Tara, this is my husband, Mike." "Nice to meet you," were exchanged with a rather provocative smile from the hostess. The subliminal "come on" passed as Tara turned her attention back to Madeline. "Everything has just turned out just beautifully," Tara confided, her face aglow with satisfaction. "I'm so glad you're pleased." More guests funneled in from the front steps into the entry hall, effectively taking the spotlight off her and Mike. Tara excused herself and swooped in on the new arrivals, welcoming them into her home. The volume increased to full tilt party level. Madeline took the opportunity to check on the kitchen while Mike went in search of a prop to hold on to. "Will you get me half a glass of bubbly?" she asked before he wandered off. He answered with a nod, then headed in the direction of the opulently lit backyard where the bulk of the action was centered so far. Madeline found Lauren in the kitchen, making sure everything was going according to plan. After a final word with the chef, Lauren made her way through the industrious staff for a huddle with her boss. "You have no reason to be nervous. Everything looks perfect," Madeline assured her assistant. She snagged the last goat cheese puff off a returning tray to pave the way for champagne on an otherwise empty stomach. "Thanks. I finally feel like I can breathe again." Lauren followed her boss out of the kitchen to the dining room, where 4 round cocktail tables had replaced a formal dining table. A couple small handbags had been left as placeholders on 2 of them. Looking around for her clients, Madeline asked, "Have the Richardsons been behaving themselves so far?" Lauren gave Madeline an equivocal head waggle. More or less. Mrs. got a little uppity when I arrived at 4 o'clock without you, but then her hair and makeup lady showed up, so that gave me room to breathe." "That's good." "I have to tell you, though," Lauren said in a whisper as she leaned in closer to her boss, "the husband gives me the creeps." Madeline had gotten the same vibe off Troy Richardson when she first met with him and Tara. He had an air about him that made it no secret he appreciated his good looks as much as the general female population did. "Did he come on to you?" "No, not really, but I've been watching how he checks out the women here. He did ogle me a bit until he found out I was just part of the help." Madeline cast her eyes around, looking for Troy Richardson. She caught sight of him out on the flagstone patio, looking quite animated as he regaled a couple of female guests with some amusing tale. As he delivered the clincher, she noticed how he placed a hand on the bare arm of the woman standing closest to her, a move that implied a certain degree of familiarity. She wondered if she was reading too much into it, but there seemed to be something more than platonic energy sparking between the happily married husband and the curvaceous redhead, whose eyes remained adoringly stuck on her host's face. Troy's hand rested on her arm several beats too long, a gesture not lost on his wife as she sidled up next to him. Madeline couldn't overhear what was being said, but she definitely picked up on the awkwardness before the redhead and her friend went in search of other ways to amuse themselves. She only caught a flash of irritation on Tara's face before her view of the lovebirds was obscured. "What'd I miss?" Mike asked as he handed his wife a glass of champagne. Nothing. Mike's eyes turned in time to see what had caught Madeline's attention. Being so attuned to her, he rightly surmised she had picked up on something that had her reordering her assessment of her clients. Thanks for the champagne. Madeline clinked her glass against Mike's mineral water. Did you try any of the hors d'oeuvres? I sampled a few, Mike admitted when she brushed a crumb from his tie. The gathering had quickly mushroomed as the last of the invited guests filled the rooms and outdoor patios. Troy decided it was time to address the crowd. The musicians yielded the floor, the drummer providing an audio background for the speech with soft brush strokes that set the perfect tone and kept the guests' attention until Troy began to speak. Thank you all for coming to help my lovely wife and me celebrate our first 5 years of marital bliss. Troy wrapped an arm around Tara's trim waist as he toasted her. They both smiled brightly while they looked longingly at each other, earning polite applause from their guests. The team of 2 photographers recorded the moment for posterity. We know 5 years is no big deal in the grand scheme of things, Troy continued. But the time feels like it's flown by so quickly. It's made both of us realize how important it is to take stock of what we've got and appreciate how fortunate we've been to find the one person out of billions we were meant to be with. Congratulatory murmurs and another smattering of applause rippled through the gathering. Tara beamed and giggled, mouthing the words thank you to their guests as Troy kissed her on the cheek. Turning to face him, she gave her husband a passionate kiss that provoked a few impressive wolf whistles from some of the males in attendance and enthusiastic encouragement from many of the unattached females. When the host and hostess came up for air, Tara took over. When I was a teenager, I was convinced I would marry the most handsome, exciting, sexy, and caring man in the world. Then I grew up. Troy flashed her a look of mock indignation before chuckling along with his wife and their guests. But what I had fantasized as the perfect man doesn't even come close to describing the man I'm so grateful and proud to call my husband. If this gets any sappier, I'm going to go wait in the car, Mike whispered in Madeline's ear. We'll cut out of here soon. I just want to make sure Lauren still feels comfortable with the timing in the kitchen, Madeline whispered back. Once she can push them to start plating the entrees, we'll sneak away. Satisfied with that timetable, they turned their attention back to the host and hostess. When I first met Troy, I remember telling myself not to be taken in by his exceedingly good looks, charm, and thoughtfulness. I thought it was just an act, a come-on. I figured any guy that good-looking could only be out for one thing. Tara gave Troy a mischievous smirk, seeming to enjoy his discomfort at such a revelation being made public. Titters from the tipsy female guests generated a fit of giggles Tara was forced to fight down, eliciting further awkward body language from her husband and more encouraging laughter from the guests. But as I got to know him better, I realized how truly warm and genuine he is and how grounded his principles are. After dating for almost a year, I knew I'd never find another man I could possibly love or rely on more than Troy. When he finally proposed to me, I knew I had found my forever man. Madeline wasn't surprised when Mike slipped away, nor could she blame him. Not everyone enjoyed listening to people tout their happiness, especially when a false chord was being struck. There was definitely a little too much authenticating going on, as if their wedded bliss needed some kind of proof or validation to make it seem believable. Once the attestations of love and fidelity finally ended, the guests responded by taking advantage of their host's generosity. Lauren let the couple know the first course was about to be served. Madeline hung around while the guests seated themselves and the food service began. And after she felt confident she put in enough of an appearance, she went inside the house through the laundry room door, heading to the kitchen to make sure everything was running smoothly before she ducked out. As she passed into the hallway running between this laundry room and the kitchen, she caught sight of Tara and Troy. They were so caught up in their apparent disagreement they didn't even look her way. Madeline figured they were already halfway looped. She scooted through quickly, acting as if she hadn't seen or heard them. She found Mike chatting with the parking attendants. His car had already been fetched and was positioned for a quick getaway. While walking around to the passenger side, she felt her phone vibrate. Thinking it might be Lauren with a last-minute question, she stopped to check. Catching the quizzical look on his wife's face, Mike asked if she needed to go back inside to sort something out. No, Madeline said distractedly, acknowledging the valet holding the door open for her. Once Mike got in on the driver's side, she shared the puzzling development with him. That was a text from Russell. Barnett, what does he want at 7:45 on a Sunday night? He says he needs our help with something. Something urgent. Without waiting for Mike's input, she tapped out a reply. The fact that their former mentor and co-conspirator against Madeline had resorted to asking for their assistance was as unexpected as it was ominous. Madeline hadn't been exactly cordial with him the last time she had to pry information out of him, which made his overture even more curious. Before she could reply, a new message appeared. He says he's parked in front of your house. Mike's apprehensive expression mirrored her own. I'll let him know we'll be there in 15 minutes. He must really be in a jam if he's hard up enough to ask us for help, she said, tapping out the brief reply. Looks like this evening's entertainment isn't quite over yet, Mike quipped. He shifted into drive and rolled away from the Richardson's house of wedded bliss and on to the night's next entertainment.